No way, Jose really wants to know what your thoughts on Eddie Guerrero. He's asked
I
about
mean, I
four
met him a
times.
few times. He was a real good guy. Very tragic the way that we lost him, and was always good to me and good to Chris. He come down here and worked a few shows with us at OVW, and seemed to be one of the class acts. I mean, he had his demons from the past, but that wasn't anything that we saw when he was down here. And he's one of these guys who was at the time he came was a real big star in the WWE. He was really about as over as he ever was.
Mm-hmm.
And but he insisted on changing in the locker room with all the other boys. Didn't want no special treatment. Danny would always give the big stars their own. They could change in the office where Danny was, but no, Eddie wasn't going to have that. He changed with the boys, and that way, if the boys wanted to talk or had questions, he can handle that. I mean, you would have thought he was just a student trying out to get to the WWE himself. So, no, he was a class act. I only met him a few times, but he was always good to us every time I did.
Any thoughts or any talks with Steve Austin about doing your podcast?
About doing a what now?
Doing your podcast, Steve Austin doing the show.
I don't know that he can. I think through has he done anyone else's that you know of?
I
That's
mean, he's
not
done Jericho's, but I mean, it's all. But Jericho's there with him in person in L.A. You know.
yes. And Jericho does most of his shows in person.
Yeah.
He insisted on doing me and Jimmy in person. He did Rico in person, Austin in person. And I don't know why he elects to do it that way, because I think Skype, honestly, and Google does just as good. But
he's done those if he has to, but he prefers in person. Well, I'm the same way with my show. I prefer in person too, but I'll do the other if I have to. But even with you though, this is with the Facebook Live video. I don't see any reason why we couldn't get Austin on the show.
Well, I think the only shows I've heard him do are with other WWE talent. I think Lawler did his show recently. I can't remember if Austin did Lawler's or not, but I don't really recall him doing a lot of shows other than with other WWE talent. I mean, I can ask him, but he doesn't like to do video shows. He and I can see each other, but he records audio only. He and I see each other like you and I do right now. So he can respond off facial expressions, and we know when to interrupt each other and all that. Which I actually let him do some talking. But I don't know that he does video shows or not. I haven't heard of him doing any.
Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. I mean,
he likes my setup though. He said my setup's a lot better than his. And he asked about the microphones. He asked about Tucow and the layout. That that me and Matt Cappotelli only had one match.
Yeah.
And do you want to guess who won that match?
I'm assuming Kenny the Star Maker Bolin.
And Cappotelli says, I will never, ever live that down. We talked about that a few months ago. Talked about me getting that cheap ass victory over him. It was actually a handicap match. He had made the prediction that he could beat Crony with one hand tied behind his back. So we said, wait a minute, really? You think you can beat Crony with one hand behind your back? So we made him stick to it and made Cornette book the match. So Crony goes in there and he's wrestling Cappotelli with one hand tied behind his back, and Cappotelli beats him. But after the match, Crony and two or three other of the BS guys jumped Cappotelli and beat the shit out of him and left him laying unconscious in the middle of the ring. But the stipulations of the match were that if he beat Crony, he got 5 minutes with me. That was the stipulations of the match. That was the only way he'd do it. So when they beat the crap out of Cappotelli and left him laying in the middle of the ring, unconscious, I said, oh, well, being as he gets 5 minutes, Jimmy, ring the bell. So they rang the bell and I got in, strutted around a little bit and did the not the people's elbow, but the royal elbow, to where I get approximately about an inch, maybe 2 inches off the ground, and drop the elbow. And Matt said that he was scared to death that I was going to cave his chest in. So he puts his arms up to protect himself. And he said it wasn't that bad, but he was braced for the worst because he didn't know if I'd ever given anybody an elbow drop or not. But fortunately for him, I'd given a few. So it all worked out pretty good.
Lance Lumley said the Brian Last, our favorite person, said on Cornette show that Ventura was a better announcer than Heenan. Do you agree?
Oh, they were different, but I certainly don't know about better.
No.
But they were different styles. I mean, you really can't compare Jesse Ventura. But see, that's what Brian Last does. He always criticizes and always makes these evaluations that he is not qualified to do. I've heard him announce one match in his life, and that was mine. Well, I say mine. It was several of us on the Eddie Gilbert Memorial. And back then, him and his little buddy, they were horrible. It sounded like they got two eighth graders out of the crowd and said, "Hey, we need somebody to call this show. Do you at least know the wrestlers' names?" And it's on YouTube. If you look up the Eddie Gilbert Memorial from, I think it's 97, possibly 98, listen to him and his buddy do commentary on those matches. And they are not very good at all. And for him to criticize people like Lance Russell, sorry, I got something in my damn eye, like Lance Russell and Bobby Heenan, and I guess he liked Jesse, I guess, but he's not even qualified to give an opinion. And I mean, we know what we like and what we don't like, but to go out and say, I mean, I can say that I like Lance Russell better than I like Gordon Soley. Most people would tell you that they think Gordon Soley was better because he was more worldwide known. And but I liked Lance Russell's style, but that don't mean Lance was better than Gordon. It just means that I preferred Lance Russell's way to call a wrestling show, him and Dave Brown. Gordon Soley was predominantly a one-man show most of his career. He was the who's that announcer for the Dodgers that was a one-man show for Vin Scully.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a one-man show most of his life. And I got something irritating my right eye, guys, so just bear with me through that. If this is where you wish you didn't have a camera, then you wouldn't even have to bring it up. But no, he just, and he does that all the time with wrestlers and announcers and all this shit, and then just it doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, and insults people that, number one, he wouldn't do it to their face in a million years. They say he is notorious for not saying anything negative about me or Chris on his shows. Because number one, Chris goes up there every year, and Chris knows exactly where he lives at because people have told him. And if he ever pops his mouth off about Chris probably go talk to him about it. Physically, I ain't going to track him down or anything, but if he wants to stand in front of me and pop his mouth off, then I'm more than happy to listen to him. And as Cornette has once said, I still have the 3 steps of doom, and if you can get within 3 steps of me, I'll have a talk with him about it. But they say that he goes out of his way not to say anything bad about me or Chris other than when he popped his mouth off when we first quit. And then we put the word out that, oh, by the way, we'll be up there later this summer. If you want to pop that mouth off again, we'll be more than happy to swing by and talk to you about it. So, and now that he knows that we know where he lives, he doesn't run his mouth off as much or at all.